Thank you, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the Public Works Committee at 5:01. First item of business, roll call. You've gotten that? Do we have any? We have no visitors.
Paul visited. Yes.
Next item, approval of the minutes from our June 14th meetings. Anyone have any comments or concerns about the minutes?
I wasn't there, so I can't vouch for anything.
But didn't we assign you some?
Yeah, I think you get communication to the general public. That's what you got assigned. Just kidding.
Sounds like a fun job.
Yeah. I thought the meetings, or the minutes looked fine. I didn't notice anything, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second that. All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
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 New business, discussion and possible actions on proposals received for preliminary and final design for the Hagan Street Bridge replacement and 11th Street Cooley Road intersection. Dean, will you introduce the discussion to give us some limits?
Sure. So good evening, committee. So tonight, we received proposals. We had sent out an RFP, request for proposals for design work, preliminary and final design for the replacement of the 11th/Hagan Street Bridge over I-94, and then also the replacement of the intersection at 11th and Cooley, just because it's so close to the bridge. It would essentially get wiped out by the bridge reconstruction anyway. So proposals were due on July 2nd. We received 3 proposals that we had distributed to you guys, and you guys were able to take a look at. So where we're at in the process, we as staff met internally and with a member of the WISDOT structures group just to go over preliminarily if we saw any red flags, or if we is one head and shoulders above the rest, that we would just move to select them right now, that kind of thing. And we kind of had the consensus that they all 3 had their pluses and minuses, and none were way up here and none were way down here. They were all kind of in the middle with some questions that we still had for kind of each of them. So as a group, we decided to propose that we bring all 3 in for interviews to kind of get a feel for the teams that each proposer would put together, kind of ask some of those follow-up questions that we were unclear on, or on maybe a weakness in their proposal or something, just to see if there's any clarifying information or anything like that that we would glean through the interview process. So tonight, that's what we're proposing to have you guys make a motion to do, is to bring all 3 in for interviews to be able to select a consultant for doing this work. So tonight, I kind of want to limit the discussion not to the nitpicky details of each proposal, but kind of more broadly, do you guys feel that our suggestion is the right step forward? And then also, are there any questions that you want us to make sure that we address, either for generally for all 3, or any specific proposals, maybe if there's anything to add to the list of questions to ask. So that's kind of where we want to go with it tonight, not going through every I and T in the proposal, but more big picture stuff.
And before we do that, Dean, can you just, if it's approved tonight, just kind of cover who would be on that committee for the interview process, who we're thinking?
Sure. So as staff, we've suggested myself, Mike, and Mike Johnson, if he's available. A member of the Public Safety Committee, probably Randy, and it sounds like he's interested. A member of this committee. And then also Jim suggested a member of the Bike Ped Committee to kind of represent the multimodal infrastructure with that. And we feel that's appropriate. And then also the same WISDOT person that we worked with to kind of pre-screen, so to speak, just to make sure that WISDOT is on board with the consultant that we choose.
That's a good idea.
And thankfully, the WISTA person that we've been working with has been very,
Pleasant.
to work with. So sometimes that's not always the case, so.
What's your timeline for this?
Yep, so we're looking to do interviews Wednesday, the 28th is kind of the date we have penciled in right now. And so that gives us enough time to do the interviews and then also discuss through the selection committee, which one we want to recommend moving forward with. And then the next step then for committees would come back to this committee to yay or nay, and then it would go to council, the meeting after that.
So is that kind of looking for some sort of decision by the end of August then? Is that kind of where you're at?
Yep, so actually, well, mid-August probably then, so.
Would you see these committee members continuing in any kind of function afterwards in terms of tracking being perhaps the first people to take a look at the design proposals and that sort of thing?
Yeah, a lot of the people that we've identified, staff-wise, are the people that we would have, involved pretty heavily. Council members obviously will be involved, and then the multimodal person. I'm not sure exactly the structure, but we probably would want some sort of more community involvement, and that would also include that person as well. So it's kind of details to be determined, but we definitely want everybody who's has skin in the game with us to continue on. So.
Each one of the proposals had a public engagement portion to their proposal, and obviously I can't assume anything, but you would think that we would get a lot of comments on this structure just because it is such a vital part of our infrastructure. And I could see that committee kind of vetting some of those comments with the consultant to kind of put, the words to paper, so on and so forth, and then bring it to council for proposal, and just say that. I think that would be a good avenue or a good purpose for that committee moving forward with this project, just because it is going to be such a highly visible project for the city.
Very important, very difficult at the same time.
Have we ever had like a citizen, I know you mentioned somebody from the bike safety or your bike path committee, but maybe somebody who lives in that resident who's impacted by it, have you ever done anything like that before?
I don't know that we have for city projects, but that doesn't mean that we can't do something like that. I know for bigger projects that I've worked on in other capacities in the past, they've had committees called technical advisory committees, so that kind of deals with technical aspects of projects like plan reviews and all that good stuff. And then they've also had like either a public advisory committee or a business advisory committee, or depending on what the project looks like or where it is or that kind of thing. So having some sort of public advisory committee might be a good idea to wrap in some of the neighbors and some of the businesses and some of the bike ped committee type people and whatnot.
I hadn't even thought about the business aspect, but that certainly will impact a lot of those businesses up there. So that, I was thinking if you had stakeholders like that there, they might be able to go back and manage some of the concerns, and they could feel like they have a voice.
Right.
Just an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think during the public engagement portion, we're definitely going to want to target with direct mailings those people directly affected and those businesses adjacent to the project, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And, the other thing that I've noticed with what we are going through here, even though you put stuff out on social media, I'm sure you guys live this, and this is going to be like no big news to you. It still feels like people, even though they've been invited, they've been told. So I'm wondering if some of those personal little knocks on some of those businesses or like those apartment buildings right there that are really going to be impacted, to make sure they get a personal invite or something.
Yep. Yeah, one of the people in the apartments right there has been in contact with me a few times,
Okay.
so she's really on it. But yeah, definitely we would want members of that very immediate community to be really involved because it'll impact their day-to-day life.
So as you went through the proposals, are there any huge, red flags that you saw from any one of the companies, just general questions that Dean and I may answer or that you may want us to ask? Do you think we're heading down the right trail as far as just bringing them all in, just because there is only 3 of them, to do some interviews and just kind of get a better sense of their grasp of the project and just make sure they understand the scope of what we're looking to do?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, but I'm thinking perhaps the committee would want to get together, a review committee, before the interviews and say, here are the questions we have. We want SEH. We feel there's a weakness here, or, that we'd like them to look at that, so, perhaps something like that. So the committee's prepped. And we've not done that, and I've not been involved in that in the past. We kind of just come in cold, and
Right.
it would, if we sort of said, share our concerns, and might be useful.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You go. Go, Paul.
I just had a few, without getting into the details. First of all, I think all 3 could do the job. So I have no red flags for any of the organizations or the folks doing it. My biggest question when I was looking through it, outside of some kind of weeds, which we don't want to get into right now, is just what is the budget for the project? Because I'm for some reason I'm thinking, what was the CIP number that we approved? Was it like 365,000 or something?
325.
325.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because when I looked through them, my biggest concern was only one of those firms meets that criteria. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, in terms of funding, I know that there's going to be probably, hopefully, some federal stimulus money. I know we have the 1.25 that Aaron's been talking about, but I don't know the parameters, if that's available. But I guess what I'm trying to figure out is maybe why we would interview 2 firms that we can't afford unless we know that there's additional grants or additional federal stimulus money that's going to be put toward the project, so.
Well, I know SRF's proposal, they had in there pricing may be adjusted according to project scope. So I think there is a little wiggle room in there for maybe some negotiation. But that was my initial reaction to Paul's when I looked at the proposals the first time. Obviously, I'm drawn directly to the budget number just to see what they're coming in at. And,
Right.
and one of them was substantially lower. So I just want to confirm with them that they understand the scope of the project, and B, that they're able to do the project. But in our meeting with the state, the company that was lowest does a lot of work down in the Madison area, and the state, the WISDOT employee, confirmed that they are a very reputable company, that they would be able to do the work. So it kind of put some of those hesitations that I had at ease. But I understand what you're saying about interviewing the other companies. And I don't know if it's just out of, not obligation, but just out of respect to the work that they have done in the community.
Yep.
Just because, SRF had done the I-94 corridor study, SCH did the Carmichael study, and they've done numerous other projects for us. And so I don't know if it, just bringing them, it doesn't hurt by any means.
Yeah, and there might be something that comes up in the interview process that we don't know in here that could make a difference.
Right.
But I guess that's just my initial thought on that. So I'm not against interviewing all 3, and really, I think we have a responsibility as to do that, to make sure we get the firm that can do the job well for us and whatnot. So I think that's a good idea. I'm just a little nervous about some of the price tags I saw, and I wasn't sure what the difference was and why one was so dramatically cheaper, so.
Yeah, we, so a couple things. We did write in the RFP that we reserve the right to negotiate the scope, up or down, kind of depending on the numbers that we get and that kind of thing. It is a, hurdle to overcome for SRF in particular, because they were the highest one, so we have to figure out if they, amazed us in the interview process, like how could we, afford them, so to speak, and what are some things that we feel like, maybe they had a lot more money in a certain task because it wasn't clear enough in the RFP or something like that. There could be stuff like that. We actually asked the WISDOT guy, do you see anything in here that, for structures wise, that you think we could reduce? And he thought that their price on a certain task, because they had broken out by task or whatever, is a little high. So maybe there's some other ways that we can shave off some money, you know, kind of through that process. So, and that'd be the same for either of the other ones too, so.
But you kind of hit the nail on the head as far as this phase of the project. The only money that we have budgeted is the CIP.
Right.
We don't have any plans to obtain any outside funding via grants or, you know, that type of thing. So what we have in the CIP is what we have to cover this portion of the project. Now, obviously, once the design is done, that's when we would use that to go out for federal, state infrastructure monies to help build the bridge.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're doing here is creating a bid-ready
Yeah.
design.
Yep.
Yep.
Good, solid engineering behind it in terms of the
Yep.
requirements, so it'd be really detailed.
Yep. Complete plan set, ready to go out for bid.
Yep. We call it shovel ready or whatever on the
Shovel-ready,
shelf.
yeah.
Yep,
essentially.
exactly.
Okay.
Because that, you know, when we start applying for those grant monies, I mean, obviously, that's what federal agencies are looking for, whether it's, you know, Tiger, but, you know, is your project shovel ready? You know, and the ones that are get higher scores.
Right.
Right.
Like with this bill grant we're gonna talk about, they have one line specifically in there about risk, and schedule risk is one of the things that they look at. Like if you have to take 2 years to get your design done before you can build the thing, you might not be able to build it in the time frame that you need to expend the money. And so, like Mike said, there's definitely points added to your score if you're already done with the design process and you're like literally ready to put the shovel in the ground. Then the federal government likes to see that in particular.
The other two things that jumped out with me, again, I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but the public engagement piece, I think, was super important, and the firms that really mentioned multiple public engagement pieces. Oh, sorry, and the second one is the local connection. And I noticed many of them had local connections, either with studies they have done or work they have done in town. So I think that's also super important to connect with. And I know you guys have more of a relationship with some of these folks too, which I think is important to weigh too, so.
You know, when I looked at this, I was trying to compare their basis for competition or their design fees, and said, I can't figure this out. They're so different in how they
Yeah.
presented it
Yeah.
and what they listed. It's really tough for me to say, you know, although there is some huge differences, that I can't I do not know enough to be able to judge whether these are realistic or not.
Yeah, it's not apples to apples by any means.
The other thing I noted that two of the firms, I read the resumes of the people who are going to work on the project, because that's one thing I can probably feel like I can understand a little bit better, and that one of the firms didn't have listed anybody with multimodal background, and the other two did quite extensively. So of course, you know, that's where I come from. That's really, this is going to be our only chance to ever fix how we cross I-94 by walking or bicycling or any non-vehicular method. So that's really critical. So I was taken aback that I couldn't find that in one, and yet their projects would indicate to me they should have had somebody there, you know, that they should know what they're doing. So that's something for the committee to take a look at, is how grounded they are in that particular aspect. The other thing that struck me is in one of the designs, and it looked like it maybe even took it into consideration, was a continuation of the multimodal pathways up 11th Street a little bit, and then up Cooley, which is sorely needed. And again, this is going to be 11th Street. You've raised that just recently as an issue of needing to figure out how to fix that. This is going to be our chance to. We can at least put the base in here for this is where it's going to go, and make that, we'll have something to connect to. So I think that's the other thing that we, I don't know how much we can build into this. I mean, it's one of these projects that grows, but it's time to fix Cooley. You know, I see people walking and riding and on handicapped vehicles on the road, and it just scares the heck out of me. So, yet up the other end, at the east end of it, we've got some really nice pathways up there.
Yeah.
But at the west end of it, it just goes to pot. There's just, there are, I think, that perhaps our right-of-way has been usurped by businesses, but I guess I would question it based on just general experience, say, what are they doing there, They can't have that. So, but this is an opportunity for us to take a look at that and I guess fabricate it into the design thoughts that you might have about how we might eventually fix that, and let's turn the corner the right way here, or cross the street the right way, or put the right islands in, or whatever we can do to make that happen now.
Yeah. Also, will say too that some of the questions we're going to ask, are at least the ones that I've written down are essentially like, how do you treat multimodal like design? And the answer I'm trying to get through that is like, they're the most important people you design for, essentially, because they're most vulnerable. Is somebody gonna say that? If they say that, that's like points in my book. And then also, creativity and thinking bigger picture on everything is really important. So that'll be things that I'm looking for as we go through the design process. I don't know if
one very creative design I thought in there that they just laid us. Wow.
Yeah.
That might work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But.
Yeah, I had a few conversations with people, both the one that had that design in there and then others that didn't actually propose on the project about, are you going to dock us for outside the RFP if we have a creative solution? I'm like, speaking for myself, no, because, creativity is important, especially when you get to, is there a design that can keep the bridge open while you do the construction? Is there a design for, how do you make more space to not have to put a retaining wall in somebody's yard, or Taco John's there, or stuff like that. I think those are all things to get fleshed out kind of as we get through the process here. And I personally, my engineering industry, I think sometimes gets a little too bogged down in technicalities, and I appreciate engineers who can also think planning and think outside the box on a lot of things. So they'll be people I'm looking for this project.
I know Dean did not mention the name of the public works person, and I'm thinking, given my position, that I'm not the person that should be on this committee, because I see the committee continuing on, and I'm only good for another couple months here, folks. So, I had suggested that Paul would be the most logical, but Sarah could do it just as well. So it's kind of like, Paul's just got more time on the.
And
it butts his distance.
That's what I was thinking. It's right. And I'm just coming off of one.
Here's my hood.
No,
I'm happy to. July 28th is what you said, Dean?
Yep.
Okay.
So, you can get back to me on that. That was one of the things I left in my message for you that apparently you didn't get.
That's okay.
So.
Now I'm getting it, okay.
Okay, that being said, now we entertain a motion to give the staff direction on this project.
Well, I'm happy to make a motion to bring these three in for interviewing. I would like to add that we would have either a business representation or a citizen that lives in that district represented on that too. I'm not sure if that's something we could do, but that is something I'd like to see added in.
Is that the motion? Sorry.
That's my motion,
Okay.
sorry.
I would second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we have the staff move ahead with the three interview process, and with the possibility, the desire to add a business and local area resident to the team. Is there any more discussion?
I love your idea. I'm just trying to figure out how we pick that person, or who picks that person to be on it. Do you have a sense of like how that would work?
Well, I was thinking maybe one of the businesses right by it, that will
Okay.
be dramatically impacted, and maybe it is one of those people from the apartment. Maybe it's the person that Dean has been in communication with, or maybe Randy knows somebody in his area who's expressed some concerns about the bridge.
No, I love the idea. I'm just trying to say, like, does
Yeah.
Randy pick it? Does Dean pick it? Does Mike pick it? Does Jim pick it? I'm just trying to figure out who kind of says, hey, we want you on that committee. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the best way to go about that, as I'm trying to ask?
Yeah.
Or could they be included after the process is done, kind of similar to the stakeholders meetings that we've held in the past, of different, like some of our other studies? Is that possible?
So do you want a resident and a business owner? Or-
I'd compromise for one.
So I'd say it'd be easy to reach out to, you know, the adjacent businesses, Taco John's, RJ's Meats, and see if they would be available. I mean, that to me, that's an easy one, because you only got pretty much two options there.
Or that, on the other side.
On the other side, there's that
Yeah.
professional building.
Yeah, any one of
they're-
those.
You know, that, to me, that's the easy one. The resident would be more difficult, like you said, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to have their voices heard, and that's what the public engagement portion is for.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
So-
my only concerns are, yeah, the scheduling aspect of it. If we can get somebody to take 4 hours out of their Wednesday to be a part of it, but we can certainly try. I guess it's,
I would-
if you're okay with at least us trying, and if it
Yeah.
doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Is
Sure.
that okay?
That's totally good. And should I make an amendment to saying to a business owner or a business representative? You want me to make an amendment to the motion then?
Yep.
Okay. So I amend the motion and ask that we move forward with the interviewing process and inviting a business representative to be part of the interviewing process.
I would second.
It's up to you. All right. We have a motion in front of us. Is there any more discussion?
So just to be clear, you guys would reach out to those businesses? Okay, I'm good. I think any of the residents who live in, that's in my district, so I'm happy to take any feedback and information too, so.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Just a note, Dean, too, for scheduling those, could they be like early morning, or they could be after, I have like a 2 to 5 commitment that day. So if they could be on either end, maybe some in the morning or one in the early evening, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, our biggest hangup is that we want the Woodstock person to be in person if possible, and he
Okay.
has to come up from Madison. It's not insurmountable, but we were kind of thinking of starting them around like 10 o'clock in the morning,
Okay,
and they're probably going to be hour and a half each or something like
Okay.
that. So we could probably be done by 2 if we schedule that.
we can shoot for 9
if
start.
not, Sarah could maybe take the third one. or something
Yeah,
like that.
right, we could
Yeah.
do that too.
We can shoot for a 9 start. He seemed open to it, so.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
talk.
Be out of here by
If-
noon.
If it fell back on, we needed to do the Woodstock guy over Zoom or something like that, he said he was okay with it. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
just, it's ideal to have everybody in the same room.
Yeah,
because
no, I
you're
get it.
Not
Yep.
missing something that somebody's presenting as much, so we'll figure it out.
Very good. Item B, approve the bid received by Zappa Brothers Incorporated in the amount of $134,305 for the 2021 storm sewer repair project.
Yep, so June 25th, city opened bids for the 2021 storm sewer repair project. I had included the bid, or the plans in the packet, just to kind of jog your memory. End of St. Croix Street, end of Orange Street, and then the intersection of Elm and 8th. And we received 2 bids, one from Zappa Brothers in the amount of $134,205, and the other one from Meyer Contract in the amount of $145,406.15. City staff is recommending we approve the bid received from Zappa Brothers. Any questions?
Is that based strictly on cost, or? your recommendations are based on the fact they're like $11,000 or $9,000 less
Yeah.
expensive, or?
Yeah, the fact that they are cheaper, and we have done extensive work with Zappa Brothers
Yeah,
in the past.
that's right.
Very easy to work with. So I have no hesitations with bringing them on board to do this project.
Any questions?
Yeah, I would move to approve the bid from Zappa Brothers for the amount of the $134,305 for the 2021 storm sewer repair project.
And I can second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the bid for Zappa Brothers for the 2021 storm sewer repair project. Or any more discussion? I will entertain a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item C, discuss composting options for residents of the city of Hudson.
Take it away.
Take it
So
away.
I think issue
Sarah
so
has
Sarah-
been very diligent in trying to research some different options for the city of Hudson as far as, composting in the city. I know this has been a topic of discussion when I first arrived here, and there's just some logistical hurdles that we're trying to work through, and really couldn't come up with a site that would house the amount of space that we needed that wouldn't be next to a residence place and dealing with the, some of the, smells, odors, environment, so on and so forth. So Sarah's been in contact with Advanced, which is our waste provider, seeing what options they have through their company. And she actually had a sit-down meeting with the representative last week, and she's just going to kind of update all of us on what she has found out and kind of how to move forward from here.
And I was made aware that Advance has been bought by Waste Management, which people probably know. So we were able to figure out who is responsible for Western Wisconsin with Waste Management. And there are options through Waste Management to bring composting into a city. They do it in several communities throughout the Twin City area. And they did have a pilot program, but they've decided not to continue in that because it was a subscription-based, so kind of similar to what we do with our yard waste, and it was roughly $18 to $20 a month, and it was a losing situation for them. So they have really switched to a fee-based option. And they kind of have two different formats that they use throughout the Twin Cities. One is a flat rate, kind of like with recycling. Everybody pays for it. Right now in the Twin Cities, at the present moment, those fees for everybody to use composting that have it, it's roughly $5. Not sure what it would be when the time came for us. But their other option, which seems to go better in a lot of communities, is a very small flat fee for everybody, roughly $2 a month, and then a user fee for those that choose to set up for it, and that's an additional, right now it's about $4 a month for folks, and Debbie, I can email you this if you want me to. So that is roughly $6 a month for people that want to use it. They have seen an increase of usage in the Twin Cities, and I do certainly think this will be something that we see grow, and it would be a good option for our residents. The way that we can get this in is at the time when we renegotiate our contract, or else we could ask to renegotiate it earlier. And I think Mike was did you have a chance to check to see when our next?
It's a 5-year, so it's December 31st, 2024.
Okay, so we're a little ways out. So perhaps what I would like us to consider is to ask if we could negotiate early and see if we could get this added on. At that time, I did learn that there's a few other options. I have heard from some of our senior residents that some of our fees, they sometimes feel like they're kind of being nickeled and dimed to death with a limited budget. We can at that time also ask, so this is going beyond composting, we can ask for a 10% senior discount that could be added, another feature for our residents. So I'd like us to continue to explore this and see about potentially renegotiating our contract a bit earlier.
Sorry, just to clarify, so the flat fee would be $2 a month for everyone, and then there'd be a $4 a month fee for the people who use it?
That's what it is right now.
Okay.
So, not sure, it could fluctuate, but at the present moment, the communities that use it, like St. Louis Park, he had a whole list of communities that use it. So perhaps maybe our next step is to maybe talk to some of those cities and see how that goes,
Yeah.
but
And my question was, you said there were two options, and I'm not I don't know if I missed number one. Was that a flat rate or something?
that
That's
is.
$5 a month,
Yep,
kind of?
yep, and that's a lower rate across the board, but everybody is charged for it. And it does, with those subscription-based things like our yard waste, because it's not stopping at every house or going on a set path, it's more expensive for them. So that's why these other options are much better.
Okay. And just so if folks are watching out there, could you just kind of describe what folks could put in the compost?
Thank you for clarifying. So at the present moment, we do have a yard waste option, but this would be organic composting, and so that is fruits, vegetables, those kinds of scraps that you normally put in your garbage or in your garbage disposal, they would go in there. They're in the 34-gallon container, just like you have at your home for your garbage or your recycling. And I believe the pickup, for the most part, is every other week.
Okay. And then what happens with all the compost? Like, what do they?
It goes into the cities, and they have a spot where they have it all stored. And actually, I think a lot of the cities there then for projects can use that soil when it's ready. I'm not sure how that would work for us because it is over in the Twin Cities area, but maybe it's one of those things where it's nice to know that we're helping the community at large.
Okay. Thanks for all that research. I appreciate that.
So it does or doesn't include yard waste?
That still is a separate, there's all sorts of laws out there that some states allow it, but Wisconsin and Minnesota don't allow those to commingle.
Really?
I know.
Okay.
I learned a lot that day.
Yes.
So what do we do with that? This is kind of like the composting is sort of like a new thing that we're not doing at all, and we still have the yard waste.
The yard waste, we're waiting to hear back on a few things. So the yard waste in our community is our residents pay $20 and they can have it from April to October, I believe. And it's on a weekly basis. One of the things that we did learn that they're double checking, but in most communities, if you've overflown your garbage can, you can use those brown garbage bags, and that's part of your $20.
Okay.
And that, I don't think that's, to me anyways, I haven't been clear on that, so I haven't thought it made much sense, because I thought it was cheaper to get those brown bags and just not have to, deal with that $20 fee. So I think we're waiting to hear back from them, but
It's their present system is very expensive.
it is,
You buy the bags and you buy the
Stickers.
tags.
Yeah.
yep,
I have a couple neighbors who extensively garden.
yeah,
I hear more about this than
I know.
about anything else.
Yeah.
So if you can get those brown bags and you pay that $20, that might be the most economical way for our residents.
That's our neighbor
Yeah.
who's a master gardener. She says, absolutely, that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
'Cause that just for them totally makes sense. And
Right.
They drive by, and I've watched them do this, and if they don't have their cart set out, they drive on by. If they have their little
yeah.
yellow top thing out there, they come in and pick it up.
And the composting would be year-round, so the organic composting. So it's not, no.
Excuse me.
Interesting.
I was gonna say, I think throughout this process, whichever way you decide to go, obviously, I think public engagement is gonna be very important to get the feedback of the community. Even if it is, a minimal charge like that, people will say something. But, I mean, we have Polco from the comp plan. We can send out maybe just a question through there and just see what responses we get initially, even if it is just 20 or 30, at least it's better than nothing. And then maybe go from there as far as what what avenue we like. And then the other thing too is, I don't know if we need to reach out to Nick Vivian as far as renegotiating our contract and what that would look like. Who would be in those negotiations? Would we just get, you know, a quote or a revision from Waste, and then we would bring it to council for review and approval, that type of thing. So, I mean, there are some steps that are going to need to be taken in order to implement the program, but we're heading in the right direction. Put it that way.
Those are all great ideas, and the gentleman from Waste Management did say that cities do this occasionally. They renegotiate early.
Okay.
So I don't think, but I'd really love to get Nick Vivian's input, and I love the idea of getting the question through Polco.
Okay.
I think that's a great starting point, and, you know, what other ideas?
I think, you know, this is really good, and I believe they would renegotiate for added business. So I don't think that's going to be an issue unless it opens the door to increase their costs somewhere else, which we don't want to happen. So in the process, you mentioned there are other communities that we need to check in with those and find out what's their real experience here, what's the participation, how many have to participate to make it break even, that make it profitable for that.
Did he indicate anything about like commercial usage, or was it strictly on the residential side?
We just talked residential at
Okay.
this point.
Yep, that's fine.
So does it make sense to get a motion to keep doing some legwork and keep working on this and maybe reaching out to cities and touching, I mean, do we need a motion to kind of keep doing?
No, you should,
No.
No.
Just
no,
encourage
not if you just keep
you to lead
Yeah,
this
just
working on
process.
it.
Just direct staff. I mean, I can certainly.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
And I can help do whatever.
Okay.
Yep.
They do know you, Deb.
Oh,
And they like you. They like you.
Who doesn't know that?
I know, I didn't mean that. I did not mean that.
Well, thanks again, Sarah, for doing that.
All right, that takes
So
care of the new business. I have no old business listed. So I guess we're into project updates. Gene, how about how's Highway 35
Oh,
now?
well, it's
downtown
going.
lately?
We've been working through some challenges, we'll put it that way, both with coordination of schedules and getting the contractor to get the crews that they need to get there to get the project done in time, and all sorts of stuff. And I've been working extensively with Sarah with the community concerns and comments and stuff to resolve those. And yeah, so we just moved into essentially a new phase where in the downtown area they're now on the east side working on the same kind of stuff as they did on the west side. And then they also moved from the segment from Myrtle to Division. Now they're moving to, or they started this week, the section from Vine to Myrtle for the same kind of stuff, replacement of water main and sanitary sewer and storm sewer, and then the road. So we were a little concerned going into that work that the contractor had not shown in the previous segment that they could get things done in a reasonable amount of time, and so we ended up working with WestDOT to negotiate a interim completion date for that segment from Vine to Myrtle of 4 weeks to get all the utilities done and to get the road to gravel. And if the contractor does not meet that requirement, then WestDOT is able to charge them liquidated damages for any calendar day past that date of August 1st. So that was good. That was a good step, and we're very happy that WestDOT was accommodating with that, as they are also really frustrated with the contractor not getting their work done as they've been supposed to have been doing. And then also this interim completion date will also help to be able to give enough time to hopefully complete the work from Division to across the Lake Malibu Bridge before the construction season is over this year. So we were worried that if they drug out the process from Vine to Myrtle, that they wouldn't leave enough time then to do the other stuff across the bridge. And so with this completion date moved up, we're more happy about how this is going for schedule for the future. So, so if all goes well and they get the utilities done by August 1st in the Vine to Myrtle section, then the contractor will be starting to work on the concrete paving all the way from Vine to Division Street, which is good to get that all kind of done in one fell swoop. That will put people out of their driveways for 2 to 3 weeks while the concrete sets up and stuff, because there's a number of different pours they have to do because it's concrete road pavement instead of asphalt pavement. And then the closure to North Hudson access is currently scheduled for sometime in August. There's 2 closure periods that will need to happen to get utilities done in the Division Street, North Street, and then across the river at South Street in North Hudson to get those things done. So those are scheduled in August right now. Initially, they had told us that they were going to do it after Pepperfest was done, and then we got contacted by the school district, who was freaking out about that schedule because it would go into the start of school essentially for their busing. So we're trying to see if they can do that first closure period before Pepperfest, then have it open for Pepperfest, and then close it again after Pepperfest to be hopefully done with the closures by Labor Day. So we're still working on how all that's going to shake out, but that'll be kind of to be determined. So.
So for the downtown portion, obviously they're doing the work on the east side of the road. I know you probably want to know this. So once that's completed, as far as getting the pedestrian ramps installed, all the, sidewalk back, the boring for the new lighting, that's when they will start to schedule the milling operations for the road pavement through downtown. And that's tentatively scheduled for kind of that first week in August. That's kind of what they're shooting for right now.
Yeah, I think they were going to wait until the pavement is all the way in north of Vine Street so that they can match up to it with the milling and paving operation. So that would be middle of August.
So maybe middle of August now.
Which is good. That's a good long-term, for maintenance purposes, it's good to match your asphalt into concrete rather than concrete into asphalt, because asphalt is much more I don't know how to say it, loose, I guess. Concrete is pretty definite. Asphalt moves and ruts and all that kind of stuff. So if you're doing it that way, that's better. So that being said, we'll be coordinating with the downtown businesses when we know exactly when those days are, but it'll probably be middle of August sometime. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Just want to go on public record too. The lights on the west side of 2nd Street in downtown are just temporary lights. Those are up there just to keep downtown lit until the new lights do arrive, because they've been pushed on back order. So those aren't the permanent lights. So thank you.
I had somebody mention that the detour into 3rd Street, they thought it was going to be done by Labor Day. When we were at that meeting, I had in my head the middle of September for that detour to be done. Do you have a better sense on that?
So what we're looking at right now is that once the concrete pavement is done from Vine to Division Street, then traffic will move back to 2nd Street.
Yeah.
So based on the schedule of first week August to do the first pavement, second week, or plus or minus to do the second part of the pavement, then it would be, say, mid-August that people would be back on 2nd Street and off of 3rd. So hopefully that schedule holds up, because I know people on 3rd Street are really tired of having the highway on their street. I totally understand why. But that's kind of what we're shooting for right now. So definitely by Labor Day, if all holds together, that would be.
That's fairly realistic.
Yeah, that'd be realistic, just in case there's things that slow things down.
Weather materials type of thing.
Yeah.
Anything else on 35?
Yeah, how did the WISDOT public meeting go?
I think it went pretty well, actually. We had probably 20 to 30 people of the community there. Sarah was there. Joyce was there too. you know, the contractor kind of ran through the proposed schedule for, you know, all these, you know, switching over to the new phases and stuff, and kind of what that means for everybody. And that kind of, I think, took a lot of the bigger questions, kind of answered those, and then we answered questions just from whoever about more specific things after that. I don't know, Sarah could say as much as I could how well the meeting went, but I think it went pretty well. Everybody was very civil and understanding, it seemed, and, you know, hung out a little while afterwards talking with people, and everybody seemed to be in a decent mood about it, so. I hope that's the vibe you got, Sarah. More or less.
I agree. It was civil, and people were able to express their concerns and got answers and felt heard, and maybe not happy, but they felt heard. Yeah.
Sometimes the answers you have are not the ones people want to hear, and
Yeah.
that's how it goes. But
Exactly.
I think everybody was more knowledgeable after the meeting was done, and that's a good thing. So.
Yep.
Any other questions? Moving on, the 2021 street maintenance project.
So I had a conversation with the contractor, Farner Asphalt, about just getting an update on their schedule. So it sounds like next week their crew is going to be in to do the crack filling operations in the various streets that require it. And then the chip seal portion of it is looking like it'll start the week of August 2nd at this point. So, and that process will take, you know, a few days to do for the chip seal, and then they'll come back and do the fog seal and pavement markings portion. So still on track to be done by the completion date that's in the contract of it was Labor Day weekend. I can't remember exactly what day, but yeah.
In the contract, as far as after they do the chip seal, how many days did we give them from the time the chips are on the road to the time that they have to sweep them off? Do you recall?
I want to say it's between 3 and 7 days.
Okay, all right.
Because they have to give it
Let
some
it-
time to let
yep,
it compact,
let
but
it set.
also
Yep.
they need it done before they fog seal, and the fog seal is in 7 days,
Okay.
I think, from the chip seal.
Okay.
When the chip seal's done, so. Yep.
I think I mentioned this before, but because I walk this frequently, on Wisconsin, the pavement marking job they did last year was really inadequate. And I don't know, they rolled it, and I felt like, oh, that's a terrible way to be putting something down on an irregular surface like that. So
Yep.
a thorough way would be to spray it, but I don't know the.
We did talk with them about that too, just so that they're aware that the process that happened last year, we want them to
Yeah.
be better this year.
Might have them go look at
Yeah,
Wisconsin Summer
right.
Street and see just how poorly, that was bad before we had snow and ice, so.
And I think, were you looking at touching up some of the striping on last year's project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the bids came in a lot lower than what we anticipated, we do have some money remaining in that account, CIP monies, for them to re-hit Wisconsin, Hagan Street, and just touch them up and freshen up the paint, as long as they're gonna be in town. And, I mean, striping is minimal compared to the total project cost.
Right.
So we're looking to get some numbers from them and if they come in low enough, we'll approve that internally.
Yep. I also
good.
will say too that if you drive down Hagan Street, you can see where some of the old stripings kind of pop through the seal coat too. I did tweak our provisions to try something else out to pre-treat the pavement markings, essentially, to have a little more oil to hopefully get it to stick better, essentially, for next time. So we're trying that out with this one. I don't want the Crestview
Yeah.
markings to be showing through.
And that's, I mean, the Crestview portion of the project is definitely the biggest part. Dean had drafted a letter and sent it out to all the businesses there because it does include a full road closure overnight, not during the day. So it's 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.,
7 a.m.
7 a.m., where it's
For two
two
one-night
nights.
periods.
It's only one night.
Okay.
For
two
one-
times.
2 nights total, one night at a time.
Okay.
One night to do the chip, another night to do the fog. But all the businesses have been sent a letter. We have been fielding some phone calls and answering some questions on that. But it's just one of those streets that, well, you know how busy it is. And in order for the contractors to get in there and work efficiently, we made that part of the special provisions that, you know, this has to be closed down just to get a good product, so on and so forth, and get in and get out. So just so that you're aware, if you do start receiving some phone calls, you can direct them to Dean or I, and we can answer any of those questions. But hopefully it's not too big of an inconvenience. I mean, obviously the 7 a.m. opening is probably a little later, but we got to have time for that material to set up. I'd rather deal with people complaining that they can't get their coffee than dealing with people that say I got tar all over my car. So,
Will you
And-
guys set up a detour then during that time?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, so traffic will be detoured down O'Keefe to Hanley to Carmichael, that will be signed. I will also say that we are keeping access open at the intersections at Gateway and Badger, so you can cross Carmichael even during the night,
Okay.
so that people who need to get to Quick Trip or McDonald's in the middle of the night, or
yeah,
people who need their coffee at 4 a.m.,
Yeah, right.
you know, can get through there.
trying to accommodate as best we can.
Yeah, so they will be able to get there. It won't be completely closed. We wanted to make sure that there wasn't that traffic going on Crestview because for the contractor to have to deal with all that traffic while also doing a job that's going to hold up, it would be a nightmare, say at 3 p.m. or something like that. That would be, and we'd be getting a lot of calls about that. So we want to make sure that we were getting the right product and the right timing, so.
All right, any questions?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, the next item is the improvements at Carmichael Road and Vine Street intersection.
Go for it. You're doing a good job.
All right, I was gonna say I'm talking a lot. I don't know if that's a good thing. So the contractor at that intersection has completed the curb and gutter and the pavement and the restoration behind the curb and gutter. So really what we're waiting on right now is the loop detectors for the signal to get done, and there was some hiccups with that. And then we had a conversation with the developer's engineer today about getting that work done and stuff. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to get the striping done ASAP so that we can open up the road ASAP while we're trying to wait for the loop detectors stuff to get done, because we feel it's worth it just to get the road open so that people can use it as it's intended to. And then once they do get the loop detectors in, we can just kind of close maybe like a turn lane or something here, something there to get that done. So getting close. Hopefully be done with that very shortly. So
Yeah, we ran into some problems with some of the staking, and some of the curb was poured incorrectly, which pushed the project back a week because they had to cut out a 200-foot stretch
something like that, yeah.
and restake a report. So that pushed the project back because this was supposed to be done June 30th, but here we are 12 days later and it still isn't done. So like Dean said, we're just going to move forward with the company has to come and jet off all the old lines, get it restriped, open it up, do the loop detectors, but at least traffic will be able to flow a lot better through that intersection. That's it.
That will be good, because the desperation at that intersection has gone up significantly. So I've had some
insane,
really
yeah.
interesting experiences going through there, so
Yeah.
it will be well received when it's done.
Yeah, we have been getting a few calls about when that's going to be done, and so, yeah, I think a lot of people will be very happy when that opens up.
And it sounds like they're going to look to get to that striping this week.
I haven't heard the exact.
You haven't
date,
heard this?
so-
Okay, all right.
But
Sooner rather than later, let's just say.
At least before school opens, right?
Yes, oh yes.
it better be well before that.
Yeah, you'll have school bus drivers down here. Thank you. Glad that's coming along. It'll be well worth it when that's done. Build grant submission.
So we just today submitted the, it's now called the RAISE grant, but formerly known as the BUILD grant for the design work of the rebuild of Carmichael from I-94 northward to past the middle school. And so that process was a little, it was nice that we had the application done essentially from last time, but in the midst of changing federal administration and COVID and all sorts of stuff, it kind of, the timeline of the process was a little different this year. So today was the deadline for submitting the application. Last time it was in May. So they added a few selection criteria to it. So it just essentially just had to add some information, which is better than having to rework the whole thing. So I believe the whoever the committee or the Secretary of Transportation or whoever has until sometime in November to select projects for moving forward. So we got really good feedback the last time on our submission. So we're hoping that we get successful in this time. Really, the last time they just told us essentially, hey, we had so many applications. You guys were essentially in the group of runners up for selection. So how it works is these applications, they have a number of different tiers of, so essentially the first round is they look at everybody's application, they get a really initial ranking of highly recommended, recommended, or not recommended, and everyone who's highly recommended essentially goes to the Secretary of Transportation's office and they go through the projects or whatever. And there's only a handful of them that get highly recommended, and ours was one of them last year. And so the Secretary of Transportation selects a certain amount of them to be within their budget and stuff. And so when I was talking to the FHWA person last year, he essentially said, well, one of the things he said was that they really like to see the people who are runners up reapply again, because people already have it in their head from last time, like, oh, I remember that one from last time. We really like that one. We were able to select it. And so they already kind of have that good taste in their mouth, so to speak. And so we're hopeful that we're successful this time.
Yeah.
So that would just be for the design part of the project, not for the actual construction.
Just the design.
But because of that project is going to be huge, the design part even is fairly large. So
Tell them what the estimated cost is for the design work.
for all the design work, $1.5 million, and we asked for $1.2 million from them. So it's an 80-20 match. So
Again, and then that would make that project shovel ready, which we then apply for federal funding to build it. Because I think the estimated cost, well, the last
Depends,
number,
yeah.
the last number was thrown was around 15 million.
When you apply for federal funding, then how quickly do you hear back on those things?
Say that again?
When you apply for federal funding, typically how quickly do you hear back?
So, I mean, there are deadlines. This one specifically is November. And then typically what happens is you have a certain amount of years to use that funding up. And I don't know, 2 or 3 years. It all varies depending upon what grant you're awarded or what you're applying for. But it's a longer, arduous process. It's not a fast 1 month turnaround you hear, and it's usually 4 to 6 months before you hear anything back.
there were hundreds of applications last time,
Yeah.
or even thousands maybe.
This is coming from the entire United
Yeah,
States.
the entire
right?
United States. So yeah, it's not quick, but 2 months is, or actually no, sorry, 4 months is not terrible as far as the federal government goes. So, yep.
What's our backup plan?
Keep applying.
Yeah, well, keep applying, but we also have been talking about too if there's some public engagement activities that we can undertake on our own. And also, hopefully, if we don't get selected this time, that'll show them that we're serious about this project and we don't want to just sit on our hands until money becomes available. We're kind of showing or putting our foot forward to show that we want this project to keep going. So that would be the next step if we don't get selected, and then apply again after that. And, if council wants to designate CIP money for the whole thing, that would be wonderful. But that's a big pill to swallow. So.
It's a good segue into the next one, Chairman Weber.
It's an interesting thought. We've not done anything like that. That we kind of wait till we've got the plan ready, and then we tell the public. But everyone's interested in, they know exit 2 needs to be redone. And they all see the need for that. So if we had an informational session of some sort.
So this, could just to clarify, isn't exit 2, it's north of exit 2.
Well, yeah, right, it's north of there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is preparatory.
Kinda wraps into that,
Preparatory
though,
to exit, but you, if you have that meeting, you will get questions on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think the meeting perhaps would be on the status of both those projects. You
Yeah.
know, we think about that, because you will certainly get asked about the other, so,
Yep.
I don't know. Thought, see how they, if we have anything to say, you know, that's the first thing, you need to have something to say.
Yeah, what I'd be looking for with the public engagement for this, if we move forward with it on our own, is essentially to kind of introduce people that were, you know, looking at this, because we've had all sorts of comments about, you know, bike ped issues through that corridor and whatever. So it's kind of introduced us that, yeah, we are seriously looking at this and how to make this better. It kind of tells people that, and also asks people. I would want to know essentially if there are any like specific barriers or things that people come across using a corridor on a day-to-day basis that we would want to make sure that we've accounted for essentially while we do design, and so kind of getting people to think about, you know, what are the things that I struggle with when I drive or walk or bike on Carmichael Road, and how could that be better? It gets them going a little bit. So, so this public engagement wouldn't be, you know, zeroing in on all the specific details of things, but just kind of more starting the conversation and getting people interested to get the momentum going to hopefully see the project through to completion. So,
Yeah.
Make sure we're capturing all the issues
yep.
related to it.
We can have a preliminary design, you know, there, and I know the one that we've seen, you know, it closes off that if you're sitting at the Walgreens exit, you're trying to make a left-hand turn, it would essentially close that off, so you can only make a right-hand turn. So, you know, stuff like that where you can get kind of initial feedback on some of that stuff and how that would
Right.
impact, but.
Yeah, we're not, I wouldn't expect members of the general public to be weighing in on roundabout versus a signal or, you know, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But, you know, what are the issues? You have troubles turning left, you know, on a certain part of the day in certain
Right.
intersections or whatever, so that we can empower the engineers and the people who are, you know, going to be hopefully brought on board to have a greater understanding of all the things that we would need to hit through this project. So we want to also get out in front of this to avoid some of the things that we've been dealing with downtown, where they didn't consider a lot of the finer tuned details and didn't listen to a lot of the people's comments with that project as well. So we're hoping to do this differently than how that turned out, honestly. So I know that's preaching to the choir here, but
When you walk in with a plan, here's the design, and you say, no, this isn't going to work. They say, well, it's too bad. You know, here's the design. You know, it doesn't feel good. So, especially when it's wrong. So, but only in our opinion, right? Okay, thank you. Last item on the agenda is transportation utility.
so I don't know what Mike wanted to say about this, but we are discussing this more at City Council on Monday about next steps with setting up a transportation utility for infrastructure future needs. So,
Yep. So we've been having some communications internally between myself, Dean, Aaron, and Mike Johnson about rolling this out to the council and what that's going to look like and how we're going to frame it to make it palatable not only to the council but to the public in general. So Dean has been tweaking some of the numbers in his presentation. I think we've kind of settled that, something that would be feasible and realistic to start off with. And Dean is going to be presenting that to Common Council on Monday, just to get kind of that plant that initial seed. He has laid out kind of a timeline as far as trying to get it implemented. But obviously, there's going to be some public engagement to this process. What's the council's initial reactions, how they'd like to see us proceed. But it doesn't, it's not the golden egg. It's not going to repair everything all at one time. It's going to be incremental. And so I think we need to make not only council but the public aware that, the plan that Dean, we kind of settled on focuses more on the arterial major streets, and a lot of the side streets are kind of left alone just because the funding levels aren't there at the beginning, but that doesn't mean they can't go up over time. But that's kind of where we're at in the process, and hopefully, we get a good response from council, and kind of have council direct Dean to start, formulating the public engagement process, so on and so forth, and trying to get it implemented sooner rather than later, because we're in need of some funding to fix our roads. So, but that's kind of what I have to say on that.
So we'd be looking for the council to give you a positive affirmation to move ahead with the project.
Yeah, yep.
I know Aaron's big thing is essentially like, we want to make sure that we can get this established, the transportation utility, like that's the big thing that he wants to do initially, and then what the funding numbers are after that, kind of to be determined on a annual or biannual basis, but yeah, so more information on Monday.
That's critical.
Two thoughts on that is just, I think one, it's going to be really critical to engage like the Chamber of Commerce or some of the businesses in the area, because I don't know if everyone's aware of this. And then two, I think it's going to be equally critical to talk to churches. I don't know if there's a way to have the city reach out to, I forget the organization, but where the churches work together and whatnot. But I think that those, I don't think they're really aware of it, but I think it's going to have a big impact on those budgets, which are sometimes not huge, right? So I don't know if there's work that can be done on those two fronts, or if there's ways to reach out and just mainly to communicate and get some feedback that way too.
Paul, I'd like to add schools in on that too. I'm not sure if they would fall into that category or not.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention on schools is that with the creation of the utility, we are proposing to not charge schools or the county, because there are other taxing authorities, and
Okay.
they might not be able to change their budgets in time.
Gotcha.
With how they would have to like tax other, I don't know, other people to make that work.
That makes sense.
So that was a proposed thing with that. As far as the chamber goes, we haven't reached out to them specifically yet, but that would be something that as we move forward with this, that we would definitely want them, they may not be ever completely on board with, charging businesses more money potentially for infrastructure, but at least if we can get them to understand the reasons behind it, and that we're, kind of why we're thinking about this and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they would be on board with it, I would hope, but if they're not, at least to come to some kind of understanding as to why we're dealing with this.
Yep, I'm just wondering maybe
Yeah.
like if Aaron could reach out to Mary Claire or something like that, to just have an initial conversation. I think it would help.
Before the meeting on
I
the
would-
19th, you think? Just
Yeah,
to kind of give her a heads
I
up?
would say both of these things, the sooner the better, like the sooner the better
Okay.
to start having those conversations. Because I think if it gets too far along and people find out, you're gonna have we could have a real reaction to that, as opposed to laying the groundwork, so.
Yeah, and in Dee's presentation, he does kind of lay out examples of what, a single-family resident would be charged, what a church would be charged. So you kind of get a general sense of
Yeah.
the cost, and, the charge is based on the, round trip.
The amount of trips, right?
Right, exactly.
But it's such a new concept, I
Oh,
think
yeah.
most citizens, most churches, most businesses are gonna be like, where did
Well-
this come from? So I just think
Right.
it's gonna be a lot of groundwork, I think, to lay, so I'm just encouraging more communication to go that route. Earlier than better, if that makes sense. So.
Yep. I think that'll be an important part of it. Well, we're going to be talking about this on Monday night, so that doesn't give you guys really need time to have any meaningful discussions, I mean, other than to Mary Claire say, hey, this is, you might want to tune in to the meeting, and, because this is going to be critical. But definitely, we're definitely going to have to reach out to the businesses on this, because it's going to, that's one population that's going to be affected in different ways than they have been before.
How do you actually collect the funds then? Is it part of like their property tax statement, or how does that work?
It would be through their utility bill, so like where you pay
Okay.
your water and sewer and stuff, it would be on that.
And so, you maybe told us that and I missed it, so.
No, so that's okay. It's like the name suggests, it's a utility, transportation
Oh.
utility, so it would be
Thank
within
you.
that same billing, yep.
Did you see that one?
Any questions, any more questions about that? Communications and items for future agendas. And one item we have on here is discussing the 2022 Public Works operating budget.
Yeah.
So that'll be at our next,
Yeah,
at our August
so
meeting.
we just had kind of an initial, we're using our new financial software to create our budgets this year, so we just had a training on it last week, Friday. But in years past, for Sarah's reference, basically what I've done is, based on our operations and previous year's budgets and expenditures, I've kind of carried those forward and made small adjustments to the upcoming operating budget. Last year was a little different with COVID. We really cut back and basically just kind of carried everything forward, made some reductions. But this year, we're going to obviously look at last year's expenditures, make those adjustments. But I want to give all of you the opportunity to reach out to me. If there's anything that you would like to see be increased. Now, this is just operating. This isn't capital expenses. So, whether it's more line striping, asphalt patching, street light work, traffic signals, sign budget, so on and so forth. But what I've done is basically I put everything in the budget and I present it. And I kind of just say, these are the areas that I raised and this is the reason why. These are areas that I decreased and this is the reason why. And then you kind of give feedback on that, but you have a chance to kind of look through it and give your thoughts and suggestions on what you see as, whether it's a red flag or if it's something that you want to see increase that you've been hearing about from your constituents. So that's kind of how I'm looking at proposing it. Just kind of putting together the budgets and bringing it forward to next month's meeting for you to review it and make any comments on it before it goes to finance and council in the next coming months. Does that sound okay?
For sure.
Okay.
Anything, Jim, the bridge piece too, at the August meeting? To put the bridge piece on the August
Oh,
meeting?
yeah, very good, yes, definitely. What bridge piece?
And
That will definitely be on there.
if I have additional updates on composting, would that go under old business then? Or could we just put that back as new business? Because I hope I have some updated.
Yes.
And compost.
Yes.
That old business.
Probably
Old
old, we
business?
probably put it
Okay.
on old business.
Something that's new or.
Okay.
But yeah, it had to do with the contract and go new.
Okay.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn?
I can second that.
Moved and seconded to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Jim.